Welcome back to Daily Wrap. That was Rick. This is me. How are you? Today, as we mentioned before, governmental watchdog group Judicial Watch announced it has discovered under a Freedom of Information Act that there were 5 months of emails from Hillary Clinton's private servers that were missing. The missing emails begin when she became Secretary of State in 2009. Let's bring back Tom Fitton. He is the president of Judicial Watch. So, Tim, there you are, joining us live from Virginia. Tom, excuse me. So, tell us your response again to the State Department. They say that there was no gap. You say there is a gap. Who's right, who's wrong, and why?
Well, these documents show there is a gap, and they're saying we promise there may be emails, based on what you're telling me. I haven't seen their exact statement, that show in the future that there is no gap. We'll believe it when we see it. In the meantime, this analysis shows there was a gap. They didn't disclose any of this to the American people. This was in April of this year, well after the New York Times report emerged, long after they had received the emails, and now they're telling us there's nothing to worry about. Well, why didn't they disclose this to us back in April? Why didn't they tell the courts about it back in April? And now we're expected to give them the benefit of the doubt. This is an agency, and Mrs. Clinton, who has obstructed criminal investigations, obstructed congressional investigations, and obstructed our court cases, and this is more evidence of that.
Tom, it's Rick Unger. I just want to point out that you're questioning why didn't they tell the court about that back in April will be relevant if, in fact, there is this gap. They claim that there isn't. If there is no such gap, then they would have had no obligation to say anything beyond what they did. But here's what I want to ask you. In the last block, you referenced that the Obama administration has been playing fast and loose with this investigation. What evidence are you basing that on?
They let Mrs. Clinton steal all those records. They knew she had these records. They told courts. They searched her system. They searched the Executive Secretariat in response to our Freedom of Information Act requests, and they knew she had this separate system.
Tom, I got to interrupt you because I assume you're
not going to let you interrupt me. I'm going to answer your question. They didn't search these records, and they lied to us and to the courts that they did search records, and they didn't. And they didn't tell us about it until they were forced to. They didn't disclose any of these records voluntarily. They opposed to disclosing these records as quickly as they've had to. They played games with us. They've tried to just stop the court proceedings from happening. They've asked for delays. So the facts are that this is not only a Clinton scandal, but an Obama administration scandal.
Well, Tom, once you said the word steal, it was kind of hard for me to hear the rest. I'm guessing you're an attorney because you're the president of Judicial Watch.
No, I am not an attorney.
Okay, well, I suspect your attorneys would probably tell you that you may not want to accuse her of stealing something unless she intentionally stole something that wasn't hers. Are you alleging that that's what she did?
Thank you for your legal advice, but of course she stole those records. She didn't have any right to those records. Those are federal records. No one is allowed to take them, and she took them. This is a government system, and she took them.
In what way?
They're federal records that she had no right to have, and the fact is everyone else who would have done this, in fact, the agent would have been hauled into court, especially given the classified nature of the documents she purloined.
Well, I don't want to get into a legal battle with you over this. I want to give other people a chance to ask you questions, but I think you'll find that the records that she came into possession of, you may feel that she should have gotten them in different ways and should have turned them over, but that doesn't constitute theft under either federal or state laws. So I'm just...
You got an investigation into this?
Excuse me?
Do you know the records and how she got them? Of course you don't. All I'm going on is what the public record is, and what the law is and what the regulations are.
And that equals stealing.
This alias government system to conduct government business. And that system was mismanaged and improperly run during her tenure, and she just took it in contrary to law. And now she's withholding records from the courts and Congress and the Justice Department and FBI, and we're trying to figure out where the rest of these records are.
Tom, what do you think of the Department of Justice last week, at least the lawyers for the Department of Justice, saying that she was allowed to erase her personal emails? In terms of precedent, isn't that dangerous? Because then we're allowing, let's say a Republican wins the White House next year, or we have a Republican Secretary of State. Doesn't it allow that person just to deem what's personal and what is state business based on what their judgment is? I mean, I just found that remarkable that the DOJ came to that conclusion.
And it isn't what the regulations are. Arguably, if she were in the State Department still and using her, send an email to you all saying, hey, great work, it's let's go out for tea, and it's a truly personal email, maybe she could delete it. But once she left the office and once she wanted to leave, the State Department regulations are everything on that system is subject to government disclosure and retrieval and archival and it being archived and being subject to scrutiny. And you can't take anything without her permission. And that's what she did. And she doesn't have the right to delete anything once she goes. And no other government official will be able to go back into a system like this and figure out what's personal and federal and delete records. The State Department or the Justice Department seems to be acting as frankly an arm of the Clinton campaign as opposed to an agent of public interest.
Tom Fitton, President of Judicial Watch, thanks for staying with us for the commercial. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, we want to know who your pick is for the 2016 nomination. Go to newsmaxpolls.com to cast your vote. Up next, lots more. Stay tuned.